preparation is the beginning of the creative process. Our next page, please. Okay. Next in the book of Matthew 25 is another parable. I know a lot of you know the parable of the talents. Verse 14, it starts here. It says, "For it is as a man was about to take a long journey, and he called the servants together and entrusted them with his property. To one he gave 5 talents, probably about $5,000. To another 2, to another 1, to each in proportion to his own personal ability. Then he departed and left the country. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he gained 5 talents more. And likewise, he who had received the 2 talents, he also gained 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. Not after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came and brought him 5 more, saying, Master, you entrusted to me 5 talents. See, here I have gained 5 talents more." His master said to him, "Well done, you upright, honorable, and admirable, and faithful servant. You have been faithful and trustworthy over a little. I will put you in charge of much. Enter into and share the joy, the delight, the blessedness which is your master enjoys." And he also who had the 2 talents came forward, saying, "Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. Here I have gained 2 talents more." His master said to him, "Well done, you upright, honorable, admirable, and faithful servant. You have been faithful and trustworthy over a little. I will put you in charge of much. Enter into and share the joy, the delight, the blessedness which your master enjoys." He who had received 1 talent also came forward, saying, "Master, I knew you to be a harsh and hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you had not winnowed the grain. So I was afraid, and I went and I hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is your own." But his master answered him, "You wicked and lazy and idle servant, did you indeed know that I reap where I have not sowed, and gather grain where I have not winnowed? Then you should have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I could have received what was my own interest. So take the talent away from him, and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will be furnished richly, so that he will have abundance. And throw the good-for-nothing servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and grinding of teeth." Does that sound like heaven? Is there weeping and grinding of teeth in heaven? So the talents were given to the servants. I'm talking about servants, those who are already serving in ministry. It's not talking about people who are attending. It's talking about servants, those who have chosen to give a part of their life to serve God. And they were saying, and he was saying, the master gave them a certain degree of talents, each one according to their ability. He says what? Each one in proportion to his own personal ability. You know what? Life is not even. It's not, I mean, God created all men to be equal, but not everything is equal. Some people might be good looking more than others. Some people might be more smarter than others, but God knows that He has given you and me an ability that each and every one would have the ability to perceive, to multiply, to work with, and to live with. Not everyone, it seems like some people who might not have as much talent may be more blessed than those who don't have enough talent. Why? Because some of those that might have a small talent may be working more harder than the one who has a natural ability that has more talents than the first one. And they may be more blessed. I have a cousin. My cousin's family, they were about 16 in the family. And because they were 16 in the family, they had they were poor. Why? Imagine 16 kids. How can you feed 16 kids? And their dad was a carpenter. And the mom didn't work. So how could you feed 16 kids and send all of them to school? So all of them didn't have that much, but they were at least good looking. And they knew they weren't smart. My cousin was finished 6th grade, and after he finished 6th grade, he couldn't read and he couldn't count. He just went through school because teachers were so sick and tired of him, they didn't want to see him anymore. So they kept on passing him. Well, their mom was kind of the same thing. Their mom, when she went to school, the dad would say, when the dad was tutoring the mom, she would say, Dad, we're not there yet. We can't read that part of the book yet. And then when the dad would go back, she would say, oh, Mom, Dad, we're done with that. We can't read that part. We're finished with that. So she wasn't preparing herself. But the children were different. The children knew that they had to exert more effort. My cousin, who did not know how to read when he finished 6th grade, he finished 6th grade, he was about 16 years old. So he was the biggest in class. He was the most mature. He was 16 years old when he finished 6th grade. And he didn't know how to read, didn't know how to write. But then after that, he understood one thing. He would not live if he wouldn't work. And he had to make sure that he had to start somewhere. So he started making the same kind of juice that Brian would make. And he made one. And he brought them to every fiesta, and he sold that. And then he made those small candies, and then he would sell that, pulverons and those pastillas. And he would make that, and he would sell that. And he learned to count money on his own. He never knew what money was about, but he learned when he started doing business. And then he learned also to read on his own because he started buying those small comic books, the Filipino comic books, and he started to learn how to read. Now he even knows English, and he never went to high school. And he started with that, and then after that he started buying, his business started flourishing in selling and buying that food, he started buying t-shirts, and he started selling t-shirts. And then after that, he bought pants from the Levi's store. So he went to the Levi's factory, he bought all the pants that were
slightly irregular.
Rejects, and he would sell them on the streets.
Not rejects, slightly irregular.
Okay, slightly irregular.
I buy them.
So he would buy that and he would sell that, and now he has his own house, and he's renting 5 apartments out to people. He has his business. He's sending all his kids to private school. But he never finished high school. And now they're all going to church. He went to church because there was one time I said, look at my cousin. I went to high school, I was in college, and he's earning more money than I am. So I went out with him, and I started selling clothes with him. I sold t-shirts when he went on to his pants. And then when we were selling, we would be followed by the cops because we were just vendors on the street. We didn't have permits, and we would run every time the cops would come. Sometimes the cops would catch us, and they would just get a shirt or get pants, and we're fine, we're done. And then they would let us go. But he saw me as I was reading the Bible, and he said, there's something that you're doing. What are you reading? I said, I'm reading the Bible. And then he said, well, I want to read the Bible too. And he started multiplying more after he started reading the Bible. Because after he started reading the Bible and started going to a church, that's when he started buying his first home. He bought his first home, and now he has a 5-door apartment. And now he drives even his own vehicle. And for each his kids, he bought them each a bicycle, so he doesn't need to drop them off to school. Imagine. So he may not be that educated, but he made sure that the small talent that he had, he made sure that it would increase, and he would bless God. And I hear today he's even serving in church, and his wife is in the music ministry. There's nothing that can keep you down. It doesn't matter how small, how little education you have, God has put in you something. And if you fail to use that which God has placed in you, then you have just disrespected the very gift that God has given you. God has called you and me to be something greater than we are. You might have been blessed because you look pretty. Have you seen that? If you see a nice car, you see the person driving the car,